Hello everyone and welcome back to the EDH Jank Center, your source for everything Commander and everything Jank. I'm your host, Jordan or Prairies, you can call me either, and today is a very special video. It is our first ever patron selected video. That was very redundant, but you know what I mean. It's very exciting. I gave the members of my Patreon, the people who are in the Discord, the opportunity to vote on 4 different video topics, specifically deck tech ideas, and they chose VOLO Itinerant Scholar after a very exciting runoff election. It was a whole thing. If you'd like to join the Patreon, the link is in the description. But for now, let's get right into this deck tech, boys. VOLO Itinerant Scholar is one of my favorite commanders from this year, and also it just so happens to be in my own very personal collection. I run it as an Is It build paired with Popular Entertainer as the background, and I just love this deck so much because it is a bulk tribal deck, and I will explain. Explaining the card would greatly help this strategy's explanation, so let's get into VOLO Itinerant Scholar. He's 2 and a blue, legendary creature, human wizard from Commander Legends Battle for Baldur's Gate. When VOLO enters the battlefield, create VOLO's Journal, a legendary colorless artifact token with hexproof, and whenever you cast a creature spell, note one of its creature types that hasn't been noted for this artifact. You can pay 2 and tap VOLO, draw a card for each creature type noted for target permanent you control, named VOLO's Journal, choose a background, and he's a 2/3. So basically, the more different creature types you cast, the more cards you're going to draw by activating VOLO's ability. And if you've been watching the channel for a while, you know this channel loves to add and include cards that are underutilized, janky, or otherwise unloved in the format. And plus, I've been struggling for a while to build an Is It deck that I really enjoyed and had fun with, so pairing this with Popular Entertainer allowed me to put a bunch of Is It colored, janky creatures in a deck and just go nuts. And that, my friends, is what I mean by bulk tribal. You can basically just pair VOLO with a background, reach into your bulk bin or your bulk box, whatever you store it in, and you can find some creatures that all have varied types, slam it all in a deck, and it's probably pretty viable. All you gotta do is, you know, put some removal, put some protection, all that good stuff, and you've got yourself a pretty viable build. And what's great about VOLO is you can pair him with any color background and he essentially works the same way. You just gotta find some combo pieces, some win cons that work in your color combination, but that's not hard at all. But man, oh man, every single time I have played this deck, I have so much fun. I don't even care if I lose, I just draw so many cards, I just do stuff, I goad people's creatures because I'm playing with Popular Entertainer. It's just a ton of fun to play, and I hope you guys really enjoy it. Let's dive in. But before we dive into the 10 cards I'm highlighting for you guys today, let's go over our other commander, which is Popular Entertainer. 1 in a red legendary enchantment background from Commander Legends Battle for Baldur's Ew. Commander Legends Battle for Baldur's Gate. Yeah, that's a tongueful. Commander creatures you own have, whenever 1 or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, goad target creature that player controls. So keep that ability in mind for this first card, which is Mountain Goat. 1 red mana, summon creature from Portal. It has Mountain Walk. If defending player has any mountains in play, Mountain Goat can't be intercepted, which just means it can't be blocked. And it's a 1/1. Now, you could probably build a bulk tribal deck with VOLO where it's under like $15 by just choosing a bunch of rando unsynergistic cards. However, since this is my own personal list and I optimized it for being able to be played in my own play group, all of the bulky creatures I chose for this list all have some form of evasion. This is because we are a pseudo combo deck. We need time to set up so that we can tap VOLO to draw a bunch of cards, utilize our win cons, which we'll get to later in the list. But yeah, because we need time to set up, we want to be able to keep our opponents off our backs. So I chose Popular Entertainer as the background because it lets us goad some target creatures our opponents control, keeping those creatures off our backs. And in order to continuously goad problematic creatures, we need little evasive guys like this Alpine Goat. But also just like, look at this guy. How could you not put him in a deck? Speaking of guys that I also put into this deck, our next card is Spectral Sailor, 1 blue mana creature spirit pirate from Core Set 2020. He has flash. You may cast this spell anytime you could cast an instant. Flying, you can pay 3 in blue, draw a card, and he's a 1/1. So here's just another example of a cheap, dope, evasive creature. That flying really matters because we can fly in and deal some damage, start goading people's stuff. Also though, he's 2 very relevant creature types. If we've already cast a spirit this game, we can cast him as a pirate. We can note pirate on VOLO's Journal. And you can flash him in if you need a very quick blocker, and you can pay 3 in a blue and draw a card. This man does everything. And if you're like me, you will always include cards that have a lot of utility, baby. I don't know, man, I just love cards that like do stuff. you know? Speaking of utility and doing stuff, this card has both of those things going for it. It's Ingot Chewer, 4 and a red creature elemental from Lorwyn. When Ingot Chewer comes into play, destroy target artifact, and it has Evoke for 1 red. You may play this spell for its Evoke cost. If you do, it's sacrificed when it comes into play, and it's a 3/3. So in this deck, because we want to get as many creature types marked on Volo's journal as possible, we will almost never be casting this for its full mana cost. Sorry, buddy. And since its Evoke cost doesn't ever change its card type, when we cast Ingot Chewer for 1 red mana, we get to mark Elemental on our Volo's journal, also while destroying a target artifact. It's a great card. Look at this guy. Lorwyn, man, yet again coming in super clutch. And talk about coming in clutch, this next card comes in very clutch. It's Kelpie Guide. 2 and a blue creature beast from Strixhaven. You can tap it to untap another target permanent you control. You can also tap it to tap target permanent, activate only if you control 8 or more lands, and it's a 2/2. First of all, before we get into the strategy of the card, I have to get this out of my system. Kelpie Guide, more like Kelpie Guy. Hell yeah. All right, pretty simple tech here, guys. We want to be tapping Volo, so we also want to be untapping Volo, hopefully multiple times in a turn, and drawing a ton of cards. Thusly, in this list, which you can find down in the description below, I have a bunch of cards like Kelpie Guide with similar effects. But look at how pretty. Amazing artwork here, by the way. Anyways, let's move on. And what a treat of a card we are moving on to next. It's Bronze Walrus, everyone. 3 colorless mana artifact creature Walrus from Commander Legends Battle for Baldur's Gate. Got it right that time. When Bronze Walrus enters the battlefield, scry 2, which means you look at the top 2 cards of your library, then put any number of them on the bottom of your library and the rest on top in any order. You can tap it for 1 mana of any color, and he's a 2/2. So aside from being the most handsome man of all time, he's also synergistic for the build. One of my favorite things about deck building is including cards that are staples of the format, so things like mana rocks and removal, but they have added synergies with our commander. So in the same way that Ingot Chewer was removal and a creature, Bronze Walrus is a unique creature and a mana rock. Now, it may not be as efficient as Soul Ring or Mind Stone or whatever, but it's a walrus, guys. It's a walrus that you can put in your deck. Come on. I will literally defend this man until the end of my days. All right, let's move on before I get too angry. Our next card up is Reconnaissance Mission. 2 blue enchantment from Ikoria, Lair of Behemoths. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. And it has cycling for 2 mana. You can pay 2 mana, discard this card to draw a card. So listen up, folks. One of the biggest benefits of having super evasive creatures is that they will pretty much guaranteed be getting in for some combat damage. So we want to take advantage of that, and our deck already cares about drawing cards, so why not draw more? So whenever our mountain goats or our eels or our starfish or whatever you choose to put in the deck deal some combat damage, we will be drawing cards, baby. And hey, don't need Reconnaissance Mission at this time in the game. You can pay 2, pitch it, get a new card. And hey, if you cycle Reconnaissance Mission, you might draw into our next card, which is Wizard Class. Wizard Class is an enchantment class from Adventures in the Forgotten Realms. It costs 1 blue mana. Gain the next level as a sorcery to add its ability. So the first level is you have no maximum hand size. The second level, you pay 2 and a blue. When this class becomes level 2, you draw 2 cards. The third level is you pay 4 and a blue. Whenever you draw a card, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Utility, utility, utility. Remember earlier in the video when I was talking about cards that do stuff? This is also another great example. For 1 mana, we get no maximum hand size. That's baseline. And you know what? Every game, we might not get to the point where we need the other levels, but they are there if we need them. We could pay 3 mana to draw 2 cards, and then we can pay 5 mana to buff up one of our creatures every time we draw a bunch of cards. And let me tell you what, a bunch of +1/+1 counters on something like Slitherblade, for example, that can get pretty dangerous pretty fast. And if you'll follow me this way, you'll see that we have moved on to our next card, which is Psychosis Crawler. 5 colorless mana artifact creature horror from Mirrodin Besieged. Psychosis Crawler's power and toughness are each equal to the number of cards in your hand, and whenever you draw a card, each opponent loses 1 life. This right here, folks, is our main finisher. Ideally, we're going to be slapping this card down when we know that we are going to be able to win. Now, in the build that I have built for myself, there are no infinite combos, but I'm sure you could upgrade this to give yourself infinite mana and infinite tap-untaps so that you can ensure a win. However, with our board online, we will probably be able to get our opponents to someplace close to death, if not death. but this is more of a popular win con. I've seen it in other decks as well. However, let me point you to one of the jankiest finishers I've ever seen. Behold the Unspeakable, 3 blue enchantment saga from Neon Dynasty Kamigawa. As this saga enters and after your draw step, add a lore counter. The first one is creatures you don't control get -2/-0 until your next turn. Number 2 is if you have 1 or fewer cards in hand, draw 4 cards. Otherwise, scry 2, then draw 2 cards. Number 3 is exile this saga, then return it to the battlefield transformed under your control. And the transformed side is Vision of the Unspeakable, enchantment creature spirit, flying trample. Vision of the Unspeakable gets +1/+1 for each card in your hand, and it's a 0/0 until we add the cards in your hand, which will be plentiful because we've been drawing cards all game. Ideally, we've got 20 plus cards in our hand. We can start swinging in with our flying trampler in blue and hitting our opponents for 20 plus damage. And in this build, we are pretty much consistently drawing 20 plus cards a game. I think this card is a very sneaky win con in what is a very unassuming deck. And just like that, guys, we're at the last card of the day. But before we get into it, if you're really enjoying this content, consider joining the Patreon. The link is in the description. We've got lots of cool benefits for patrons, including a patron-only EDH Jank Center Discord. Very fun stuff going on in the Discord. We've got discussions about cards, about sets, about spoilers, about our favorite deck techs. I run polls in the Discord where you get to select the content of my next video. So if any of that sounds appealing to you, make sure you check out that link in the description. All your support helps me make more videos like this for you guys. Our last card of the day is the true all-star of the deck. It is Spiny Starfish. 2 and a blue, summon Starfish from alliances. You can pay 1 blue and regenerate Spiny Starfish. At the beginning of each end step, if Spiny Starfish regenerated this turn, create a 0/1 blue Starfish creature token for each time it regenerated this turn, and it's a 0/1. And let me tell you something. Ever since I found this in the bulk box at my local LGS, I have been searching desperately to find a home for this little guy. A home where being exactly who he is not a negative, but a synergistic positive to the strategy. In walks Volo, Daddy Volo, who loves the fact that Spiny Starfish is a starfish. And that, my friends, is the end of another video. I do not think we could have ended on a more wholesome note, personally. If you guys like this content, make sure you give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and drop down in the comments below what you would put in a VOLO Itinerant Scholar deck. Would you change the background? Did I miss anything? What weird creatures would you put in a VOLO build? I'm always down there in the comments interacting with you guys, so come on down and have a chat with me. All right, guys, that's it for me. I'll see you on the next video.